Yeah, you got that. We got their cell phone. Oh, no, no, it's fine. Oh, wow. Really awkward. Oh, wow. Yeah.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Jennifer Wade, and I'm honored to serve as the board chair for the National Association for Urban Debate Leagues, also known as NAUDL. NAUDL serves as a backbone organization for 20 urban debate leagues across the country, known as the Urban Debate Network. Working together, this dynamic network addresses a tremendous gap in the education landscape, helping students to build skills that elevate academic achievement, verbal communication, and civic engagement. Now, more than ever, we believe in the power of amplifying voices and fostering open dialogue as catalysts for a better future. For the 4th season, we are excited to present iResolve, a public debate series launched in 2020 with a goal of engaging high school debaters in real conversations about the most pressing issues in their communities. Tonight, we are elated to bring you this program with the Silicon Valley Urban Debate League, providing a platform for area students to showcase their talents of persuasion, research, and critical thinking honed through competitive debate. This evening aims to affirm your faith in the great American tradition of debate, which is rooted in thoughtful analysis and respectful discourse. For the last several weeks, students have been preparing well-developed arguments that propose viable solutions for economic inequality in the United States. In tonight's debate, students will compare and contrast a universal basic income strategy with a more targeted strategy of reparations to specific marginalized groups aimed at rectifying historic wrongs. After the debaters' initial arguments, our esteemed guest panelists will offer commentary on debaters' arguments, providing both perspective and feedback for students to consider before the final summation of their cases. We are grateful to these professionals who either cover, study, or represent active policies and positions around economic inequality. Making this dynamic discussion possible are our generous 2023 iResolve financial sponsors. I want to acknowledge with personal appreciation event sponsors Liz and Randall Sandler, and series sponsors the Asia Group Foundation and Massey and Gale LLP. Thank you for your continued commitment to NAUDL, and in particular, this public platform. I would also like to recognize Andrew Gold, the board chair of SPUDL, and Bryson Sandaquita for allowing us to host here at Google this evening. And of course, I would like to extend my gratitude to Google in general for allowing us to host this incredible event on their campus. What an opportunity for students to say that they have spoken on the stage of such an iconic and global enterprise. I'm now pleased to introduce Roland Hanero, Executive Director of the Silicon Valley League, to say a few words and introduce tonight's debaters and panelists. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. Roland. Oh.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight, everyone. My name is Bryson Santaguida. Roland is yielding to me. I just wanted to make a few remarks before I introduce our panelists and our debaters tonight. In September 2005, I was attending law school in Chicago, and I attended a recruiting dinner with a law firm. Several partners from the firm were debating the treatment of celebrities in criminal prosecutions, which might sound like an odd topic from 2005. At the time, Martha Stewart had just been convicted for insider trading. And for the high school students here, your homework is to go home and Google Martha Stewart. So the debate's carrying on. And one partner who had also been a professor at Stanford and a celebrated constitutional scholar turned to me and she asked, "What do you think?" This is a true story. The moment, it's like a small moment, but it's frozen in my mind forever. I had this sort of like excitement to share what I thought, but a visceral confusion because I really didn't understand why on earth these people cared what I thought. I don't remember what I said, but for the purposes of the story, we're going to assume it was brilliant. Almost 2 decades later, I am inundated almost every day with someone asking me what I think about something. I literally can't find the time to answer everyone who wants my view on something. As a lawyer and advisor, it's my job to share what I think, to share it clearly, to share it persuasively. And as a member of my community, people want to know what I think, and I want to be in a position to share what I think and to influence what's going on in my community. In this moment in global history, with increasing polarization, increasing stratification, new technologies, new challenges that we don't even really know how to grapple with, I think it's more important than ever that we cultivate the next generation of people who want to share and are ready to share what they think and influence society for good and shape the future for good. Competitive speech and debate is critical to this cultivation mission. Debate is a training ground for our future leaders. And urban debate and all the programs provided through the Silicon Valley Urban Debate League in particular are vital for making sure that a broad range of backgrounds and a broad range of people are in this position to be asked, what do you think? And to share what they think. I would not have been in that position at that dinner in Chicago, which was just the first of many opportunities where I had the privilege and responsibility to share what I thought, had it not been for debate. So now I'd like to introduce our panelists and debaters who are going to share with us what they think, and I'm very excited to hear. First, our 2 student debaters you're going to see tonight are Chloe Trong from Independence High School in San Jose. And we have Crystal De La Cruz Bonilla from Summit Everest High School in Redwood City. I'd also like to introduce our panelists. First joining us is California State Senator David Cortese. Senator, please. Senator Cortese was elected in November of 2020 to represent District 15, which includes much of Santa Clara County here in the heart of Silicon Valley. The senator is an accomplished attorney and business owner. He previously served for over a decade on the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors and 8 years on the San Jose City Council, including 2 years as vice mayor. Senator Cortese also served for 8 years as a trustee for the Eastside Union High School District, which I think over half dozen of our partner schools are part of that school district. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you. We also have Scarlett Corona, who started her career. Oh, please. Scarlett started her career in the nonprofit sector in 2009, providing mobile showers to individuals experiencing homelessness in San Francisco and Oakland. They've continued to work providing case management to our unhoused population in Oakland, focusing on housing and access to healthcare. Scarlett is the program manager for the Rise Up Alameda Guaranteed Income Pilot Program and works for Operation Dignity, the implementing partner for that project. This pilot program was created by the city of Alameda to reduce economic instability for program participants, change the local narratives and perceptions surrounding poverty and the provision of public benefits, and to support and inform the larger discussion regarding effective transformative anti-poverty policies. Perfect person to be here with us tonight. Finally, before we start, there's of course a lot that goes into preparing for an event like this, and any debate that's worth having, really, beyond the individual work of the panelists and the individual work of the debaters you see up here. So I would like to, in particular, recognize our alternate debaters, Ojas Gandhi from Independence High School, and D'Angelo Quintero from Andrew Hill High School in San Jose. They've both prepared just as diligently and supported their peers in the preparation tonight. I also want to thank all the debaters here in attendance. I've said this a few times tonight, but I am blown away by the number of young people who are here and want to be here on a Thursday night with their time to be part of this discussion that we're going to have. It is really inspiring, and I feel so fortunate that you all were willing to come and be here tonight. It means a lot to me, and I know it means a lot to your peers up here. I want to thank all the coaches, teachers, SWOODL staff, NAUDL staff, all the supporters, board members, the members of the Legal Advisory Committee who were able to join us tonight, who make all of this possible. And in particular, thank you, NAUDL, for helping host this tonight and put this on together. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you all very much. So. I believe I'm passing it off to Sarah. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Sanchez. I am the Director of Programs and Communications at the National Association for Urban Debate Leagues. So thrilled to be here with all of you tonight, and I'm so thrilled to be back at the Silicon Valley Urban Debate League for the fourth time in our I Resolve series. It has been truly a pleasure to work with the students and the staff this year. I will be your moderator for tonight, just kind of guiding you, letting you know where we're going and helping out with some transitions here. We will start with a speech from Chloe Trong, and that will be followed by a cross-examination, then the first speech by Crystal, followed by a cross-examination, and I'll see you again before we have some panelist questions and feedback. Chloe, you're up.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe Trong, and I am a junior representing Independence High School. On behalf of Crystal and I would like to first and foremost thank everyone here for taking time out of their busy schedules to support public debate. Especially in our current world where society is constantly changing, being able to not only discuss, but also learn from different perspectives on a topic like economic inequality opens up our minds and it creates room for empathy. I want to thank SWOODL and NAUDL for this amazing opportunity, and I'd also like to thank Google for offering this platform, allowing us young leaders to speak on pressing issues today. Everyone in America has a story as to how they got where they are today. And the truth is, we live in a society where racial capitalism has affected everyone in one way or another. From the very beginning, America has always been a nation built by immigrants. Now, for hundreds of years, people from different races and cultures came together for the sole purpose of creating a country of equal opportunity. However, the mistreatment of the US government and society has given rise to decades worth of injustices towards people of color, which has inadvertently led to division. What I can tell you right now is history has not changed one bit. From the exploitation of African Americans and the Chinese Exclusion Act to police brutality and anti-Asian hate crimes, division between communities of color has always been continuous. Not only does this divide in our society perpetuate the same oppressive system, keeping many under the poverty line, but it also creates an air of resentment towards each other. Even now, we can see the perceived socioeconomic successes of Asian Americans has been used as a cover-up for the past historical violence against communities of color. All communities were hurt in some way by this division. And what we truly need as a society is solidarity as a way to resist racial capitalism and make sure support reaches the people it needs to. Now, I firmly believe that a universal basic income is the best way to address economic and racial inequality for three imperative reasons. Number one being its simplicity, number two being its ability to unify rather than stigmatize, and number three being its realism. My first point is on its simplicity. I can almost guarantee that at least every adult in this room probably finds the process of paying taxes to either be extremely tedious or incredibly stressful. The first thing that popped up as I did research for this topic was dozens of blogs and articles on how to quote unquote cope with tax time stress. Now, I want you to imagine this administrative burden from the perspective of someone in immediate need of economic support. A family loses Medicaid coverage just weeks before their 4-year-old's critical surgery because of a new requirement they weren't aware of. Even after the COVID-19 pandemic, 7 million eligible Americans were expected to lose insurance after its complicated renewal process. The list goes on. Burdens like these tend to fall heavily on marginalized groups, serving as a mechanism for inequality. While many welfare systems require immense amount of documentation to receive care, a UBI would reduce this administrative burden by making it unconditional. My second point is on unifying people of color, POC communities. Division between our country not only creates, but supports an economic system where people of color are constantly being compared and pitted against each other. An example of this division was how society deemed Asians as a model minority because they showed some form of success despite past injustices. This division is especially harmful because it supports an oppressive system silencing Asian Americans, preserving flawed comparison of people in color in the US. Even Black activists like Bell Hooks state how as more people of color raise their consciousness and refuse to be pitted against each other, the economic system that favors white supremacy must work harder to divide and conquer. Solidarity is the only way to ensure that a multiracial, multicultural democracy will become a reality. By affirming UBI for all races, we can break down racialized constructions and promote unity and solidarity needed for real and impactful resistance against such oppression. My third point is on realistic implementation. Now, the most important aspect to remember is that UBI is currently working. Programs across California, Colorado, Florida, and many more other states have successfully implemented UBI, which has already been able to reach the communities that need it the most. There are many people currently in the US struggling economically, and it is important to prioritize support for them in a timely manner. All of these impacts of anti-Blackness and settler colonialism are really real, and the current oppression is destroying thousands of lives. But the only way to truly address this long history of oppression is through solidarity. The division caused by reparation further divides and breaks down solidarity. UBI addresses all the economic issues all communities face directly by offering the support they need without the division of communities. To address both racial and economic inequality, we must focus on the efficient system of implementation. When they pit minorities against each other, we get distracted by fighting each other instead of fighting the system. Enough with the sectarianism in our country. It's time for us to unify and help those in need around us. Thank you.
Chloe, don't you think that giving money to everyone will ruin the economy more than it will help?
I actually think that if we implement a UBI, it would help our economy because as people get more money, as we redistribute more money to these communities, it puts money back into our economy. When people have more money, they buy more things, and it would essentially benefit us all.
And you acknowledge that these minorities have suffered.
Yes.
So why don't we focus on them before focusing on everyone else?
Well, the primary reason why we shouldn't be like prioritizing a system that emphasizes division is because through division, that's how these oppressive systems have been created. That's how economic inequality has been able to survive for this long. It's because they've divided people of color and they pitted these communities against each other, when in reality, what we need to do is find solidarity.
Thank you. That is all.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Crystal de la Cruz. I'm a junior at Everest Public High School, and thank you, Chloe, for all those introductions. The U.S. should acknowledge its immoral actions against historically oppressed groups and apologize in the form of reparations. People like Clyde Ross, born in 1920, are individuals who are owed some type of compensation for the treatment they received. Clyde Ross witnessed discrimination before 10. His family belonged to an African-American minority who had not received the privilege of education. This made them the perfect targets of fraud. Mississippi authorities told Ross's family that they owed $3,000 in back taxes when in fact they did not. Not knowing this, Ross's father signed away their land, leading them to become more destitute. Had it not been for the historical oppression of these communities, much like this, they might have had an opportunity to have a comfortable life. Ethnic groups always seem to get the short end of the stick, given multiple adversities to face by this unfair system. So why is it that the United States, as a wealthy country, cannot give people reparations because of the constant difficulty the government has put these minorities in? Since the government has caused all this financial burden for these historically oppressed people, it's only just for these minorities to get some compensation. Now, there are two main reasons as to why reparations can help disadvantaged groups. First, reparations can give them the opportunity to make generational wealth for the first time in history. And second, I will talk about how reparations can aid these destitute situations that were passed as a consequence of historical oppression. First and foremost, wealthy Americans are still benefiting from the historical oppression, benefiting from their past predecessors' actions, benefiting from labor exploitment of these minorities, the same minorities who are now struggling financially. As a way to aid these communities, it's best to implement reparation. According to Liza Cameron McKay, an analyst at the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, it's a matter of great deal. When the white Americans hold 84% of the US wealth, but only make up 60% of the total population, while Black Americans hold 4% of the wealth, but make up 13% of the population. African Americans hold 4% of the wealth in America. That should give us some context of how large the poverty or minimum income rate is for these African Americans who aren't in that 4%. The reason as to why they are more likely to be at the bottom level of wealth was because they weren't prioritized as people who have suffered the injustice of racism. Therefore, reparations would help give support to African Americans who aren't in that same, would help them give an opportunity to rise at the same level of wealth as a white American. However, my opponent's plan would just result in giving rich Americans who already hold most of the US wealth when it should be our first priority to aid these communities. Moreover, minorities like Native Americans are still suffering from the economic ruin they were left in by the government. According to Native American Aid, it stated that there are 90,000 homeless or underhoused Indian families, and that 30% of Indian housing are overcrowded and less than 50% of it is connected to the public sewer. This is a clear result of the neglect that Native Americans have received from the government who had colonized them. If these natives received reparations, it would show them that the government has changed from their colonial era and is prioritizing their citizens' past injustices. This will reduce the financial burden that was passed down from generations of low-income household minorities. Most importantly to note that when giving reparations, it's important to give an amount substantial to provide these Native Americans with the capacity to overcome these poverty rates. It is necessary to have reparations as a way to target people who require the money. And usually it's the minorities who have been harmed by the past actions of this country. It is the moral duty of this nation to first aid its citizens whose communities have been ignored long enough. So the concept of reparations is required to ensure that this nation is truly looking out for their citizens and to set an example that ignoring past atrocities is not the answer if we want this nation to flourish. Thank you.
You ready? Yeah. Okay. So, Crystal, my first question to you is, can you outline to me what exactly would happen if we gave one ethnic community support and not another?
Well, what would happen if we give reparation money to one ethnic community is that we are starting to acknowledge that these communities have been hurt and that they need support currently.
But what about the other communities who have also been hurt by racial capitalism? What would they think of us giving reparations to one community and not another?
Well, right now, it's important to first start somewhere, and starting with people who have been severely hurt by the past actions of this country is it's a good place to start.
Okay. Now, my next question to you is, if we were to look at this from the perspective of someone in current need of financial aid and support, where the most important thing in their lives right now is being able to pay rent and necessities on time, wouldn't the administrative process of proving you qualify for reparations be a difficult factor in these communities receiving support?
Well, it's not just about the money for these communities. It's also about the apology. When these communities will receive reparations, they are also receiving an apology. And yes, it can take time for them to get it, but it will be worth it.
Do you believe that reparations are an adequate apology for the injustices that were done to these communities?
I believe that reparations will definitely be a start for that apology.
Okay, and my last question to you is, what do you think these communities want the most? An apology or efficient support?
I believe these communities would like both of them.
Then what exactly differentiates reparations from universal basic income in regards to both of these?
What separates these is that universal basic income is focusing on everyone, when right now what this country really needs is not equality, but equity, since we can see how some minorities are suffering more greatly than others.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for making your cases, both Chloe and Crystal. It was wonderful to hear your thoughts and your questions for each other. We're now going to transition to the panelist question and answer portion of the evening. Both of our panelists will have 3 to 5 minutes to ask questions of both Chloe and Crystal about their cases, and be thinking a little bit about what questions you might have for our panelists after this, because we'll do a little bit of a Q&A with y'all and our panelists after that, while our debaters prepare their final remarks. I will turn it over now to Senator Cortese for 3 to 5 minutes of questioning.
All right, and we start in any particular order?
No, I think you can use either order. Are we on here?
Yes, yeah, it was red and it's green now, so, all right, thank you. Well, I'll just start in the order that they proceeded in. Chloe, I've spent a great deal of effort over the last few years on guaranteed income, including universal basic income. And I won't try to distinguish those right now for purposes of this debate and this discussion. You talked a lot about racial inequality. Actually, both of you as presenters or debaters did that. Can you speak about the need for guaranteed income in terms of the prescriptive nature of our current safety net, regardless of race? The system that we have that says that we, going back 50 or 60 years, the great white leaders of this country think that what you need is a housing voucher, so that's all you're going to get. Or we think you need food, so that's all you're going to get. But you can't use that voucher for anything else. Have you thought about that as opposed to strictly a redlining and racial approach to guaranteed income?
So on that point, what I'm specifically trying to argue is not essentially not targeting specific races. The type of UBI I'm trying to implement is unconditional and universal. So that, I hope that answers your question to the racial aspect, I believe. And I didn't quite catch that last part of your question.
I think you answered the question.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to be clear on the point you were trying to make as to whether the point was that we need guaranteed income in a sense as a different way of going about reparations, Or do we need guaranteed income because the entire method of safety net delivery right now is overly prescriptive?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think that was on my point on administrative burden, and that's exactly why I strongly believe that UBI is essential in this case, because most of the people who are in these welfare systems that you described, where they're only able to receive housing stamps, aren't even able to, they have to fill out all these paperwork and documentation to prove that they even need the care, which is partially why I'm arguing for UBI. And to clarify my racial point, I'm saying that through UBI, because of its universal nature, because it doesn't target one specific ethnic group, it doesn't further perpetuate this division in our society. It would unify all communities who need support.
And isn't it true if you get away from the prescriptive nature of the delivery of benefits, that you inherently take care of the racial issue?
Yeah, that's the point I'm making on my unifying POC communities, is how, because of its universal nature, it creates this sense of solidarity by making sure that the support these communities need reach the communities that need it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now, questions for Crystal. I was finding myself somewhat in agreement with Chloe's cross-examination, her questions about how do you do it in terms of reparations, and being a state senator in the state of California, where the issue has actually been taken up, is particularly with regard to the Black community, the African American community. I support the notion of reparations for them. I supported the notion of reparations for Japanese Americans who were put in internment camps during World War II. But to her point, Italian Americans, like my ancestral paternal family members, were also put into camps on the East Coast. They didn't receive any reparations. I've never had any of them approach me and say they should have. But besides the challenge of defining equity, I mean, we certainly say the same thing, maybe even to a higher magnitude, of indigenous communities here from North America, who in effect were met with genocide, and in some cases haven't even been recognized as Native peoples by the federal government. Is there some importance to reparations besides equity in terms of empowering people, in terms of respecting people? Is there a reparation that doesn't have a big dollar tag on it, a price tag on it, that would be useful? An acknowledgement of past wrongs that's non-monetary as a reparation?
That's an excellent question that I would like to do more research on, in terms of finding another way that these groups can have resources at their disposal to help them get better opportunities in life, that I would have to do more research on. But I can see where you're coming from, the fact that there are some groups who haven't been hurt as horribly as like the Native Americans, who are suffering more, but they would still like some type of apology, even though it wouldn't be as much as it'd be for those who are suffering currently more. I would agree that they also deserve some type of an apology, similar to reparations.
I mean, is it conceivable, and I'm not asking for a right or wrong answer here, or necessarily something that requires research, that some combination of guaranteed income, of unconditional payments, cash payments on an ongoing basis, to folks who have been oppressed and are still experiencing the indices of that oppression economically, that begins with an acknowledgement. Yes, we're going to recognize your tribe. Yes, we're going to recognize that you're Italian American and you were also put in a camp Yes, we're going to recognize that you're a farm worker and you've only been here for a year and you're already being oppressed. Is it possible there's a combination of the two proposals that you brought forward today?
Maybe. I'm certainly not quite sure about that.
That's fine. I'm a politician, so I'm always looking for compromise.
Okay. So I just
You're a debater. You don't have to look for compromise.
Okay, if the state truly wanted a compromise between these two, it could definitely be possible. They could push for it.
But thank you. I appreciate it. And that concludes my questions.
All right, I guess you just sat down, Crystal, so I'll go with Chloe. Okay, so I guess it's sort of like a two-part question. There are a lot of counters to a UBI. One of them being the obvious one. Why are we going to give money to the rich people, right? Or people who don't do anything, right? They just chill out. They don't have a job. And with a universal income, that would mean that everybody across the board would get this money, regardless of employment status or wealth, etc. So that's the first, I guess, thing to consider that I just wanted to share with you. I don't know if you have something.
Yeah. So my response, I believe, just a clarification, your question was why should community, people, rich people or people who don't do anything receive a UBI?
Yep.
Okay. So essentially why I still believe that we should push for a UBI is because yes, although some rich people or some people who don't do anything may receive an undeserved UBI, but the entire point is that the same UBI will still reach the communities that it needs to. With every rich person that receives a UBI, another person who is in desperate need of economic support will also receive a UBI. And I think it's important to highlight that factor.
Okay, and for the rest of the programs that are currently already helping out folks like CalFresh, CalWorks, all of those things, is the UBI going to eliminate that safety net that already exists?
No, I'm not proposing that a UBI would be replacing these safety nets. I just think it's a good additional thing as support for these communities.
Okay. And lastly, it is a huge undertaking, UBI, for the millions and millions of Americans, right? So it will definitely be a huge economic burden, a huge undertaking. Any thoughts?
Yeah, of course. So I firmly believe that UBI, yes, it will be definitely an economic undertaking. However, if we truly wanted to, we could. Recently, the government just passed, I believe it was $14.3 billion in military aid. And that's definitely a sufficient amount of support that could fund a UBI. And not only that, but there's other methods we could use to fund a UBI that are currently working. For example, through private organizations or private nonprofits that have currently been funding UBI in California, Stockton, Colorado, and Ohio. Yeah.
Yeah, just a clarification. There's definitely guaranteed income programs. Mine is an example. Just to give you an idea, $4.6 million are being used to fund my program, and it's only for 2 years for 150 families, and it's $1,000 a month, so $4.6 million for 150 families. Just a little idea, but thank you. Thank you, Chloe. So Crystal, I just wanted just a clarification. So it's focusing on reparations, right? Just for our Black community in the United States. That's what you're proposing.
Well, it's not just the Black communities, it's also Native Americans I had mentioned in my speech. But this would be a start. If we see the results of it, and if it's truly helping our economic growth, since they're usually the ones at the bottom or like poverty or barely making the minimum income rate, if it truly works, then we'll move on to other groups who have been historically oppressed by this country.
I see. And just the same question, is it along with the current programs that we have, or will it eliminate all the same, like CalFresh, CalWorks?
No, it would be like along the
In
same.
tandem?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much to our panelists for those questions. Our debaters are going to take 8 minutes now. They're going to prepare some rebuttal speeches. I've got a timer going here. I'm an old debate coach, so always good on a timer. But while that is happening, we want to give you, the audience, an opportunity to get to know our panelists a bit better. And while you're thinking of some questions that you might have for them, I have a couple of questions to start. And what experience do either of you have with debate coming into this? And what do you think about debate as an activity now that you've heard from our students from the Silicon Valley Urban Debate League? Scarlett, I'll start with you. You're like, would you like me to start with Senator Cortez?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
No, I don't really have much experience other than debating anybody who is against the things that I'm for.
Same.
But it's amazing. I think it's already preparing you for the future, right? You really need to do your research. You really need to stay informed, whatever it is that you're doing, whatever industry you're going to be working in. It's a really good exercise for the mind, and not only for your professional career, but for your personal career, goals as well.
I could not agree with you more. I think that debate teaches you to be quick on your feet. It teaches you to advocate for yourselves, and it certainly teaches you to dive into the research and engage. Senator Cortese, I imagine, as a politician, you have a ton of experience with a different form of debates. How does what our students are doing compare with what you're more familiar with?
Well, it's in many ways it's the same, and what we just heard is very similar to a floor debate that you'd hear on the Senate floor in the state of California, or committee debate, which is where really a lot of the I think more inhibited debate happens when we're sitting on a committee like the Education Committee or Human Services Committee, and we have different political parties and people with different persuasions challenging each other and challenging the author of a bill to do something like guaranteed income would be presenting and then be subject to questions, and people who are witnesses who come forward to support or oppose sometimes get questioned by the panel, just like we were doing today. The panel would be senators, or maybe a combination of senators and assembly members. In my case, even though I've been extremely involved with the Eastside Union High School District over the years, and even though Silver Creek High School was brand new and I really wanted to go there, I applied to Bellarmine and I got accepted. And my mother said, "That's where you're going to school." They had a great debate team, and I was foolish enough not to sign up for the debate team. So I realized when I was a junior or senior in high school that I didn't have the skills to even stand in front of my own class in an English class and present. Later on, I got better at that, but I went to law school later on, and then the experience became not only standing up in the classroom and presenting over and over and over again, briefing cases and answering questions by Socratic method, but also doing what we called moot court or mock trial, which would be a lot more similar to this, standing in front of a bench judge and trying to win your case. And fortunately, because of those experiences, I was later able to stand up at a candidates debates and candidates forums when I started to run for office, and at least hold my own. But it's just a tremendous tool. Information is everything now, and the movement of information is everything. And I just think the expression that you make, just be slightly philosophical here. We're not only debating each other, but we debate ourselves. It's been my experience through my life. We have to put it out there and say, is this the possibility that I'm going for? Am I going for guaranteed income for Californians And there's sort of a self-debate that goes on, which doesn't require impressing a crowd, but requires, as Dolores Huerta, the famous iconic farm worker, United Farm Worker founder, told me one time, before you say anything, make sure you're completely unconflicted. I mean, have that debate with yourself first, or don't do it. So those are things I learned along the way.
Yeah, that confidence can be really important to making your case and to making sure that you are persuading others, bringing them on board to your side of the issues. We have about 4 minutes left here. Do any of our students have questions for the panelists about the work that they're doing along the lines of universal basic income or supporting reparations work in California? I'd like to give our students the opportunity. If so, yeah.
So, Senator Cortezia, I want to know what sort of work have you and your workers been doing to support UBI for Californians like us today?
Well, probably the thing that's most directly in my work product right now that would be supporting the demographic that you're in today is a bill that we have pending that we'll pick up again in January called SB 333. You can Google that and get it off of the Ledge info system on California if you want to take a look at it. SB 333 starts off by naming a particular problem, which is that we have 15,000 seniors exiting high school every year in California who are by federal definition homeless. We call them McKinney-Vento kids because that's the federal act that says that all public schools have to identify their unhoused population. So as we're walking across the stage getting diplomas as seniors every year, as we're doing that process and handing out diplomas, kids who are unhoused who have been receiving federal benefits through the public education system up to that point, the minute they walk across the stage, lose all of those federal benefits, and now are usually facing 4 or 5 months, right? April, May to the fall before they're either enrolled in college where they might get some more benefits depending on the ride that they're getting, the package that they're getting in college, or at least they have an opportunity to land somewhere with a job or an apprenticeship. So we would be under SB 33 offering each one of those students a guaranteed income stipend for those 5 months of $1,000 a month. And yes, it's expensive. Like we were just discussing, that the state has a $350 billion budget. That program I just described is an $80 million program. And, if we're going to keep trying to eradicate homelessness, I think we have to stop the conveyor system of, and also from a humanitarian standpoint, address those youth that were graduating into adult homelessness every single year without any support from the state.
Thank you, Senator Cortezia. Do I still have any time left to ask those?
You can ask a follow-up. That'll be our last question, though.
Thank you. I wanted to know what sort of work that what do you do, and how were you able to organize all of that for so many people, and how much was your budget when you were first starting out?
Yeah, so Rise Up Alameda, it's funded by ARPA dollars, American Rescue Plan Act. It's public funds. It's a budget of $4.6 million for 150 people randomly selected. And so I'm the program manager. I work for Operation Dignity. We basically are the ones that are doing all the outreach, onboarding the participants, and having that face-to-face interaction with the 150 individuals or families that are going to be receiving this assistance. And yeah, that's
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Excellent question. That takes us right to time. Our debaters should be ready with their final rebuttal statements. Each debater will offer a 2 to 3 minute summary of their cases, and that will be followed by a period of feedback from our 2 panelists. Thank you all for joining us tonight, and we appreciate you being here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you all for tonight. This will be my last speech. Framing reparations as a magic bullet solution to racial injustices is not only harmful, but it ignores the inherent divide perpetuated by this policy. Giving money through reparations to these communities is not nearly enough to justify as an apology. Reparations are not about acknowledging or about undoing the past injustice done to these marginalized communities. It's more so creating a mirage of the US government accepting struggles of the past in an effort to reduce their own guilt. But in an attempt to try to accept this suffering, the US accepts another stigma, furthering division while feeding into an era of polarization towards certain communities. Monetary reparations as an apology for historical injustices are not nearly enough to pay them back. It would only cause further division and pit communities of color against each other, while also making it seem as if the systemic oppressions are solved. UBI deconstructs this division through its unconditional features. Instead of targeting specific racial minorities, UBI ensures that anyone who needs aid will have access to it. And it simply does not make any sense for us to, as a country, to support a policy that not only creates further division, but would also not be able to reach the very people it preaches to help. Reparations fall in the same administrative burden trap, meaning that these communities who actively need the support won't even be able to receive it. UBI addresses economic issues all communities face by directly offering the support that they need without the division of communities. To address both racial and economic inequality, we must focus on the most efficient system of implementation. A world with universal basic income is one of less poverty and higher taxes, not a utopia or an economic collapse. Deciding which minority deserves or does not deserve economic support will further divide this country and pit ethnic communities against one another, supporting the same oppressive system. The bottom line is reparations are not an adequate apology. In fact, it makes the situation worse by furthering division between communities of color. By affirming UBI for all races, we can break down these racialized constructions to promote unity and solidarity necessary to resist division. I firmly believe that the best form of an apology is real change. Thank you.
Reparations are moral because they focus on the people this nation has yet to apologize for. Reparations are something this world needs but lacks. When reparations are implemented, you are giving historically oppressed people the opportunity to finally rise and finally make wealth. Not only that, but you are providing an apology with the resources to help them recover from all those past injustices. America being the pinnacle point of view of other countries, we need to set an example and pay reparations and as a genuine apology to show the world that we don't forget history, and we will make an effort to prevent future atrocities, since we will continue to grow as a nation. Rather than just ignoring what had happened and not prioritizing the people who are hurting from those past injustices. If UBI is implemented, we are focusing on everyone, even those who don't need the help. And quite frankly, don't you think that giving a check to everyone is disrespectful to those who never got compensated for their past oppression? Right now, we should focus on historically oppressed communities, since they're usually the ones who are still hurting from the past, and reparations would be the start to help heal those historical injustices. Reparations can be the start towards healing those historically oppressed groups. Thank you.
We can start.
Go ahead.
Okay, I guess it's me. I think both are so powerful. Both really. I have a hard time because I'm working in doing guaranteed income, right? And I see it. I see the power that it has. We're currently reaching out to those people who were selected. And, I have folks who tell me I'm disabled, my son has autism, this is incredible, this is changing people's lives. And we know the answer. There's research out there. I think we know the answer. The answer is money works. Giving people money works. They're smart. They're capable. They just don't have the resources. And they're both really powerful calls for action. Thank you so much for putting in all that work. I'm really impressed. That was great. I don't know if I can be really honest here, but Senator, please.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everyone. I'm going to give some direct feedback here, but I want to thank the organizers for for setting this up and for inviting us and inviting really folks who have similar values, if not very, very close, if not identical, but someone who works with trying to bring social justice one person at a time, which is hugely important, versus this legislator who's trying to adopt policy that's just broad and sweeping, and then hoping that people will implement it, on an individual basis. We need both, right? We need both. Broad sweeping policy, and then people who will sit down one person or one family at a time and actually do service delivery and develop empathy with folks. That said, it's interesting to me, first of all, to be a little philosophical again, that I think these are two really important things that actually in real life both need to go forward. And I'm really impressed that I have a sense deep down that, in terms of your individual values, you might feel somewhat the same, but that both debaters were able to be very unconflicted, as I was saying earlier, as Dolores Huerta said. They came forward and said, I'm unconflicted, and they stuck with that. The only danger in politics of that is it creates polarization, right? We get everybody locked into, I have the one right way. I have the one right way. But let's say for a minute, just stick to the feedback and just say, Crystal, I was really, really impressed that when you got up and had a second chance to speak, not your final opportunity, but your second chance, I ignored your reference to Native peoples, and you came back and called that out again. I did say that, and you came right back and took a stand and corrected the record, and we're not at all intimidated in doing that, and it needed to be done, and I needed to hear that too, as somebody who just kind of was dismissive of that part of your statement. In fact, I thought overall, Crystal, that you did a tremendous job coming back up and reasserting yourself. Excellent. And then I felt with Chloe, you were really good at something we talk about sometimes in terms of political messaging, which is you kept coming back to our consultants call it home base, which is, if anyone ever played baseball or whatever, that's really not a thing. I mean, you have first base, second base, third base, and home plate, right? I'm gonna say it's you come back to home, right? You come back to the place, also in an unconflicted way. And no matter what questions we ask, I noticed, you did that. You came back and said, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. This is, what's true. And I think just both of you, from a debate standpoint, it's those kinds of tools, which I mentioned or noticed. I'm sure there's many more that I didn't pick up on, but those two tools alone are really important. To be able to, no matter what your opening statement is like, to come back and use your next opportunity, even if it's for 10 seconds, to go back and say, I'm going to correct something. Not something I made a mistake on. I'm going to correct the record. That's a great debate tool. And then, of course, I had a debate with Tucker Carlson on Fox News. I was like, people would tell me, don't do it. But I knew I had enough rhetorical skills at that point to do, what I was commending Chloe on, to just keep coming back. Don't get thrown off. Don't get thrown off. If we're talking about the Constitution of the United States, don't let him ask me a question about Obama. If he does, I'm just going to come right back to the Constitution of the United States, right? That's what I'm talking about. So great job to both of you. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much. You guys did great. It's something Senator Cortese was referencing was advocacy, right? This is what you guys really did up here. You advocated, and you're doing it in a way that's advocating not just for yourselves, but for your communities. Whether you take the position of reparations or you take the position of universal basic income, these are two young people who are recognizing lived realities of themselves and their peers that need to be addressed, and are advocating for those solutions, whether you go one way or the other. It's the power of advocacy that we saw here that's really inspiring. And so I have some thank yous I have to give here. First of all, thank you, NAUDL, and the sponsors of NAUDL for making this platform available to our students, to our organization, and in the other urban debate leagues that have the opportunity to participate in the iResolve program. It's been something that we look forward to every year, and we hope that we will continue to be able to participate, have our students featured in such a way. It's really wonderful. I want to thank Google and Bryson for opening your doors to us. It's a beautiful facility. We always wonder what it's like inside. So now, thank you, Senator Cortese and Scarlett, for being here, for your attention to our students and your feedback and questions. I think that it's a great experience for young people to be able to engage with adults and people that have practical experience. Our students, all the students here are very active in competitive debate, and they'll go and do their debates, and they're in front of a judge, and they're advocating, and they want to win. But the opportunity to be able to discuss those issues with people that are really on the ground working, whether it is big picture or retail one-on-one, is really a fantastic opportunity. Thank you, Chloe and Crystal, for your preparation, for doing such a great job, and D'Angelo and Ojas, thank you very much also for your hard work in preparing. I know that sometimes hard to not be able to do it, but I hope you gained a lot from participating as well. Thank you all for attending. We appreciate you and especially our students who have homework to do and debates to prepare for competitions and tournaments. So thanks for taking the time to do this. I just want to wrap up by talking about what SCOODLE does and the importance of the work that we do, and more importantly, the work that our staff does. Senator, you made a comment about how important it is for people to do the work that Scarlett does, and we have staff and we have teachers that are doing the same thing. It's working with individual students, working with teachers, working with the schools to make sure that the students have opportunities, but more importantly, the skills and learn the components of making an argument, of doing the research, of advocating for themselves, advocating for their position, being able to listen respectfully to a contrary position, and using reason and evidence, using reason and facts, be able to have a counter argument and have that engagement in a respectful way. And that's really what we're about. But going to the topic of today's debate, we're providing these services to students in our community who are overwhelmingly students of color, many of whom come from low income backgrounds that are being affected by the absence of policies of the types that we're talking about here. And it's important that in the way that what SCOODLE's doing is giving these students tools to also be able to advocate for themselves and lift themselves into a position in their careers, in their education, by having those skills of research, of advocacy, and it'll serve them well in academics and in their professional lives. And so congratulations to all of you. And And Senator, we might be coming to talk to you about perhaps providing some state money to continue to help us do what we do. But in the meantime, we want to thank our supporters that make it possible. So thank you all for coming. Appreciate it. It's been wonderful. Let's give our students another hand. I think that's it. Thank you very much. I'll take that from
Thank you so much, Senator.
Thank you.
Oh. Yeah, I know. I wish we didn't give you guys the records here.
I'll